Hello, my lovely students. How are you? I hope you're fine and in good health. Welcome to the second part in Unit 3, Lesson 1, Food Relationships Among Living Organisms. Last time, we have talked about the predation. Can you remember what is the predation? Yep, it's a food relationship between predators and prey. Today we're gonna continue the lesson, but first, I want you to imagine yourself walking alone on a street, and someone quickly turned toward you, wanted to hurt you. What will you do then? Would you let him harm you? Or will you defend or protect yourself? Of course you will choose the second one. So how would you protect yourself from him? You have two options. First, running and hiding from him so you can escape easily. Or you can pretend as another one. You can pretend as you are a courage boy and you can face him easily, right? Whatever your choice is, you must know that the prey do the same. They try to protect themselves so as not to be devoured or become a dinner. And they have two methods to protect themselves from the predators. There are two ways or two methods that the prey could use to protect themselves from predation: camouflage and mimicry. So there are two ways or two methods the prey could use it. Some of prey could use camouflage and the other could use mimicry. First one, camouflage. What is a camouflage? As you can see in this picture, this chameleon changes its color, right? So in camouflage, the living here or the prey here depends on changing its color so it can hide easily from the predator and escape from it. But in mimicry, as you can see in this picture, the living or the prey pretends or acts or imitates as another living organism, so it can scare the enemy and run away from it. So the difference between camouflage and mimicry: in camouflage, the living or the prey changes its color to simulate or to be like the surrounding environment, or to be like the same color of the area around it. But in mimicry, as you can see, this butterfly has dark spots on its wings, and these dark spots looks like the owl eyes. So once a predator approaches from this butterfly, the butterfly can scare him and pretends as an owl, so the predator will run away from the butterfly. And this is the difference between camouflage and mimicry. So let's talk about each one in details. So if I want to define camouflage, what's meant by camouflage? It's a phenomenon, and I said before, the word phenomenon means something happened in nature. It's a phenomenon in which living organism or prey protects itself. How? By hiding from enemies. It hides itself by changing its color to simulate, and I said simulate means to be like or to be the same, to simulate the color of its surrounding environment or to be the same color of the area around it. And we have many preys use camouflage, like frog, some butterflies, not all butterflies, chameleon, octopus, cuttlefish. Let's see. So as you can see, all these preys change their colors to simulate the color of the surrounding environment so the predators can't find them. So let's say it again. What's meant by camouflage? It's a phenomenon in which living organism protects itself or hides from enemies by changing its color to simulate the color of its surrounding environment, like frog, some butterflies, chameleon, octopus, and cuttlefish. Now I want you to watch this video and see you after that.
They camouflage themselves using their shape. Take a look at this guy. Can you see it? It's called the walking leaf, and no wonder. The walking leaf not only has the color and shape of a green leaf, it even has markings on its body that make it look like it's been nibbled on. Now try to spot this leafy sea dragon. Covered in small fins all over its body, the leafy sea dragon blends perfectly in the seaweed where it lives. The leafy sea dragon even moves like a piece of seaweed, gracefully tumbling around in the water. That's some convincing camouflage. But of course, a lot of animals don't naturally look like things in their environment, so some of them have found ways to hide themselves by playing dress up. The dresser crab walks along the seafloor looking for little things that it can wear on its shell, like coral, sea anemones, or seaweed. When it's all covered up and sitting still, the crab is nearly invisible. Then there's this insect called the masked hunter. When they're young, masked hunters are covered in tiny hairs. When it throws dust on top of its body, it sticks to the hairs, covering it completely. It's kind of like an invisibility cloak. So there you have it. Animals use all kinds of tricks to keep them hidden, and every animal has a slightly different way to do it, depending on what kind of animal it is.
So let's talk about mimicry. As I said before, that camouflage, the prey change their colors to hide from the enemies. But in mimicry, it's a phenomenon in which harmless living organism, and the harmless living organism here refers to prey. Imitate, it means acts or pretends. Other harmful or poisonous living organisms, the harmful or poisonous living organisms here refer to predators, to frighten their enemies. Frighten means scare their enemies. Enemies means harmful or poisonous living organisms or predators, and escape easily from them. So what's meant by mimicry? It's a phenomenon in which harmless living organisms imitate or act other harmful or poisonous living organisms to frighten their enemies and escape from them. Poisonous living organisms, it's like snake. You know, guys, that snake has toxic liquid. They kill the prey with it. So that's meant by poison. Poison, it means a toxic liquid that some livings use it to kill their prey. So what's meant by mimicry? Let's say it again. It's a phenomenon in which harmless living organisms imitate other harmful or poisonous living organisms to frighten their enemies and escape from them. We have just one example here. As you can see, we have two pictures. First one for hoverfly. Hoverfly is a kind of bees, and this kind of bees have some black stripes to look like or to imitate or act or pretends as another strong living like wasp. So the example here, some bees act as wasps. So some bees here use mimicry to escape from predators. I want you to watch this video to make it clear.
When an animal looks a lot like another animal, even though they're not the same kind of creature at all, it's called mimicry. And some animals use mimicry in order to keep safe, while others use it to sneak a snack. Have a look at this butterfly. It's small, delicate, and doesn't move very fast. For a bird, it would be the perfect meal. The butterfly can't fight off a bird, but maybe it can pretend to be something else. Look at the markings on its wings. Do you see what looks like a pair of big eyes? To some birds, these special markings don't just look like any old eyes. They look a lot like owl eyes. And you know what owls eat? Oftentimes they eat other birds. So when a bird comes close to this butterfly, it gets a real fright. By mimicking another animal, the butterfly avoids ending up on the menu, and it earns the name owl butterfly. Now, some animals mimic creatures that aren't bigger or badder. They're just dangerous to eat. I think we can all agree that a bee would be a bad thing to eat, right? Well, other animals don't like eating bees either. It takes just one sting for them to know to stay away from little insects with black and yellow stripes. Those colors signal danger. But other insects that aren't bees and don't even have stingers can have those same colors, and animals will leave them alone. Some flies, like this drone fly, or beetles, like this painted locust borer, or even some moths, have black and yellow stripes, even though they can't sting. But other animals don't know that, so they keep their distance, just in case. Still, for some animals, a bee sting might not be too much of a
Okay, I want to remind you that we have three types of food relationships. First one was predation, and we have talked about predation in animals and predation in plants. And also we have talked about the ways or methods that the prey use to protect themselves from predators. Now we're gonna talk about the second type of food relationship, which is symbiosis. Symbiosis is a common food relationship between two different types of living organisms. Symbiosis has three types: mutualism, commensalism, parasitism. So let's say it again. Symbiosis has three types: mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. I want you to differentiate between two questions. First one, complete the following. What and what are the types of food relationships? We have three types of food relationships. We have predation, symbiosis, and saprophytism. But if I asked you complete what and what are the types of symbiosis, here I'm asking about symbiosis. So the answer will be mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Let's say them again. The types of symbiosis are mutualism, commensalism, parasitism, and we're gonna explain each one in details right now. So first, what's meant by symbiosis? It's a common food relationship between two different types of living organisms, and it has three types: mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Let's talk about the first one, mutualism. What's meant by mutualism? It's a food relationship in which each organism gets benefit from the other. It means that each living will take something they need from the other and gives something instead. It's like the relation between you and classmate when you share the colors together. In the real, we have an example of mutualism food relationship. It's like the relation between nodular bacteria and bean plants. We have just type of bacteria called nodular, and we have kind of plants like bean plants. The relation between them is mutualism. How? Let's explain it together. The bean plants, like any plant, wants nitrogen to make proteins, but their roots can't fix the nitrogen on it, so they can't absorb nitrogen from the soil. So they need nodular bacteria to fix the nitrogen on their roots so they can absorb nitrogen and make protein and photosynthesis process. At the same time, bean plants provides bacteria with sugar made by photosynthesis process. So the relation between nodular bacteria and bean plant is mutualism. Why? Because nodular bacteria gives something to bean plant and at the same time it takes something it needs. And bean plants the same. It gives something to nodular bacteria and at the same time it takes something it needs from nodular bacteria. So let's say it again. What's meant by mutualism? It's a food relationship in which each organism gets benefit from the other, like the relation between nodular bacteria and bean plant. The nodular bacteria fix nitrogen on the plant roots so the bean plant can absorb nitrogen easily and make its food. After making photosynthesis process, the bean plant provides bacteria with the sugar that was made by photosynthesis process. So if I asked you here, the relation between nodular bacteria and bean plant is super mutualism. If I asked you, give reason, the relation between nodular bacteria and bean plant is mutualism. Why? Super, you will explain the relation because each one or each organism gets benefit from the other. How? By fixing nitrogen on the plant roots, and this is the job of nodular bacteria, and bean plant provides bacteria with sugar made by photosynthesis process. So in this relation, both of them gets benefit from the other. The second one is commensalism. What's meant by commensalism? It's a food relationship between two livings. One of them benefits from the other, while the other neither gets benefit nor is harmed. It's like the relation between you and your mother. Your mother cooks for you, takes care of you, and help you anytime, but you help her by doing anything? No. So one of you gets benefit. You benefits from your mother, but your mother neither gets benefit from you nor is harmed. You don't help her at all, and at the same time you don't harm or hurt her by doing anything. So this is commensalism. It's a food relationship between two livings. One of them benefits from the other, while the other neither gets benefit nor is harmed. In the real, it's like the relation between sponge and tiny aquatic organisms. Tiny aquatic organisms, it's like any small fish. Aquatic means water, organisms, livings. So any small livings live in water, it's tiny aquatic organisms. And the sponge, of course, this is the real sponge. I'm not talking about SpongeBob. So the real sponge is a living, and as you can see, it has some canals and fissures. So the tiny aquatic organisms live on the sponge easily. The relation between sponge and tiny aquatic organisms is commensalism. Why? Because one of them gets benefit from the other. In this case, tiny aquatic organisms gets benefit from the sponge. How? By living on the sponge, it makes the sponge as a shelter or home, and at the same time it takes food from sponge. Okay, but what about sponge? Sponge neither gets benefit from the tiny aquatic organisms nor is harmed. So let's say it again. The relation between aquatic livings and sponge. Aquatic livings get food and shelter from the canals and fissures that are found inside the sponge. but sponge neither gets benefit nor is harmed. So in this relationship, one of them gets benefit, but the other neither gets benefit nor is harmed. I hope you got this part. Next time we will continue the lesson and we will talk about parasitism and saprophytism. So see you next time.